How we doing? Okay.
So if no sits here, I'm teaching him how to do it.
Oh, I just marked you absent. Okay, let's just take another few moments here to try to work through this as far as we can. What are you doing?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it
Are you trying to factor it?
out. No, I was just trying to make it in descending order. But I don't think I did.
I like your 4x squared plus x minus 3. Please try to use the quadratic formula. I want you to try to get some practice with that. Chase, we got a quadratic formula. So that negative is a little bothersome right there. Let me see your pencil just so I can point. Okay, so I like the -1 squared is 1. I think that makes sense. So I like to think of this minus sign as being right there.
Oh, so it'd be addition because it would be negative and then negative.
Yeah, and really if you wanted to think about it another way, couldn't you say a negative times a positive times a negative is a positive? So it really should be 1 plus.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, how'd it go there, Caroline?
I got it.
Cool. Feel okay about it? Fantastic. Okay, Sasha's on her way. Oliver, how are you doing? Oh, let's talk about this, Oliver. So, this is when people make mistakes. Let me see your pencil real quick. When people make mistakes, this is usually where it is. It looks like you have just about all this right. Yeah, looks like you did a good job. Don't lose your equal sign, but otherwise I think you're in pretty good shape. The problem we're going to have is with this minus sign. Here's how I like to think about this. I like to think about this minus sign as just remaining right there. Right? So it's minus and minus. So let's remember that this minus sign is down here. What's 4 times 4?
16.
Times -3.
48.
What's 1 minus -48? There you go. Okay. Doctor, how we doing? Nice work. I can't remember if those are the right answers or not, but your work looks really good. We'll check the answers here in a second. Bree, how'd you do?
I think I did good.
Did you sing the song?
No,
I'm just teasing. That's all. Okay, how are we doing? All right, good job with the 1 plus 48. Good job. Yeah. I'm feeling encouraged. Are you guys? Mm-hmm. Okay, it's a good sign. This is our 3rd day doing this, so these guys are getting really good at this quadratic formula thing. So what do we got? Okay, good. We have one thing to talk about. So, this will be an easy one for us to talk about. Nice job with your standard form. And I agree that A is 4. I agree that B is 1. I do not agree that C is 3.
-3.
Yep, that'll change some significant
Do I
stuff.
multiply each other and then this? Yes.
With multiplication order, it doesn't matter. So you can multiply the first two, then the last, or the outside ones in the middle, or whatever.
Now it's minus a negative.
That's going to change everything to be 1 plus.
1 plus.
There we go.
48, which would be 49, which is perfect.
Which is a significant difference.
Yeah, instead of 47.
Instead of -47, right? What's the
Negative
square root of a negative number?
You can't.
It's not real, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you have to
What would you do after this?
go ahead and do the square root of 49.
Which is 7.
Yep, 7 times 7 is 49. Okay. Hey, guys, listen up. I'm feeling pretty encouraged on this one. I'm going to go ahead and run through this with you on the screen here for 2 reasons. Number 1, to make sure that you're good, for sure. Number 2, for the folks that are absent for the video, okay? So here's what I would do. To put this in standard form, I would add the 4x squared over to the left side. And so when I do that, I get this, 4x squared plus x minus 3 equals 0. Please don't lose the equal sign. It's frozen. This will be a lot easier to see. Please don't lose the equal sign when you do this. It should be equal to 0. And once you've done this, of course, you can now use the quadratic formula to solve this. And to do that, we need to identify our A, our B, and our C. So A would be 4. C is -3, but what's the B? Because it doesn't really look like there's a B. It's a 1, right? It's 1x. Yeah, so B is 1. And then whether you sing it or you hum it or you just have it memorized or whatever it is you do, we'd use the quadratic formula. x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So then we just need to plug stuff in and do the correct order of operations to finish this out. So it should look like this. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then I just have to drop everything in. So from before, I know that my b is 1. I know that my a is 4. And my c is negative 3. So I've just dropped everything into the appropriate place based on the a, b, c in the quadratic formula. And then my final steps will just involve hopefully doing some really good order of operations. And so if I do that, my first step could be x equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 4 times 4 times negative 3 is negative 48. So it'll end up being 1 plus 48. My next step could be this. I could then take it one step further and say this is really plus or minus, negative 1 plus or minus 7 over 8, because the square root of 49 is 7. And then to finish it all the way off, I would just split it up. I would say x equals negative 1 plus 7 over 8, and x equals negative 1 minus 7 over 8. This gives me negative 8 over 8, which is negative 1. This one gives me 6 over 8, which is the same thing as 3/4. So those would be my two solutions. Whoops. 3/4 as well as negative 1. Okay, so as I walked around, I saw a bunch of those answers. Like I said, that made me feel confident. Are you still feeling confident after seeing that? Okay, that's good. So here's we're gonna do one application here in just a second. It'll still be the quadratic formula, so it'll be good practice. But tomorrow's Thursday, right?
Yeah.
This whole week has me all mixed up.
Yes.
You too, probably, right? Big
Yeah.
time. So tomorrow's Thursday. So as I sit here with you all right now, and I think to myself, do these guys know what the quadratic formula is? I feel like my answer for just about all of you would be, yeah, I think they know what it is. My next question would be, do they know how to use it? And I think for the most part, as I walked around, I'd say, yeah, I think just about all of them know how to use it. Tomorrow we're going to assess, right? So tomorrow you're going to have your final concept quiz before spring break. It'll be on the quadratic formula. And I'm kind of thinking right now, you know, if I just pop the quiz on you right now, I think a lot of you would do okay. Some of you would be like, oh my gosh, it's a pop quiz. It freaks me out. I'm not going to do that. So if you take some time to prepare and practice tonight, I'm feeling really good that you have a great shot at a bunch of 3s and 4s tomorrow. I'm hoping. So, all right. So keep that in mind. I thought we would do this last one together, and then we will shift gears for the end of our class. This class goes until noon. This will work out just fine. Check out this application. We, Lord willing, after spring break, we are going to do a 2-day lab activity, more or less based on this type of question right here. Okay? So read it real quick. I'll read it out loud if you want to hear it. It says the height h, so h stands for height, so the height h in feet of an object that's above the ground is given by h equals negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 190, where t is time in seconds. So basically someone has thrown a ball, launched a rocket, jumped in the air. There is some object off the ground, right? It's up in the air somewhere. And you all know if something goes up, according to gravity, it's coming back down eventually, right? And that's what this equation describes. So the height of the object represented by h is described by this. So what if t was 0? If t is 0, you can do this in your heads. If t is 0, what's h?
190.
190. Wouldn't it be 0 plus 0 plus 190? So when time is 0, the height is 190 feet. It's way up in the air. Okay? So you could figure out the height when time is 1, right? What if I said when time is 1, what's the height? What would you do?
Add 1.
Not add 1.
Wait.
If I said time is 1 second, what's the height? What would you do with the 1?
Plug it in.
You'd plug it in for t, right? You do some arithmetic, some order of operations, you get the answer. So the question asks something a little bit different. It says, find the time, so find t, that it takes for the object to hit the ground. So in other words, what goes up must come down. We want to find out how long it took for this object to come back down to the ground. Like I said, we'll do a pretty fun lab. The lab we're going to do,
We're doing a lab?
when you come back from spring break, we're going to do a
That's awesome.
2-day lab. It's going to be outside. And just so you know, the object of the lab is going to be very simple. Who can throw the ball the fastest? Seriously. And we're going to be able to use math to figure out who exactly can throw the ball the fastest. Fair enough? So in order to figure out who can throw the ball the fastest, we need to be able to handle stuff like this. Make sense? So here we go. If I told you we're trying to find the time that it takes for the object to strike the ground, what would be the height of the ball? Listen, please, this is a key question. If you don't understand this question, you're going to struggle with these. If you understand this question, it's going to be easier. What's the height of the ball when it hits the ground?
0.
0. It's on the ground, right? The height above the ground when the ball is on the ground, well, the height would be 0. Okay. So we're trying to find the time that it takes for the ball to hit the ground. So my first step would be this, and hopefully this would make sense on a mathematic level as well as a physical reality level. I'd say 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 190. Do you see how I replaced the h with a 0? Why would I do that?
Because it's a quadratic.
Okay, that's a nice mathematical reason, but what's the physical reason? Because the ball's on the ground. If the ball's on the ground, the height is 0. If the height is 0, the ball's on the ground, right? So that's why I plugged a 0 in for h. So then, Bray, you identified, hey, this is a nice standard form of a quadratic, right? 0 equals ax squared plus bx plus c. How on earth could we solve something like this? Quadratic formula. You're going to want your calculators for this, but let's identify, what's my a value? Negative 16. What's my b? That's right, my c, of course. Pretty easy to tell when it's in standard form. It's 190. Okay, so the quadratic formula, the numbers are going to get kind of big, but you got a calculator, so that's what the calculator's for. So I'm going to write t equals, and then I'll just get my parentheses set up here. We can kind of work through this one together. You guys have proven to be good at the quadratic formula, so I'm guessing we can figure this one out. Give you just a minute to get things kind of plugged in and going. What school do you go to right now?
St. Mary's County.
How's it going there?
I like it.
What math are you doing? What math are you doing?
Algebra.
Oh, so have you done any quadratic formula stuff?
No, we're on solving compound inequalities.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. This is definitely one of the big concepts of the second semester for us, is this quadratics and the quadratic formula, and what do you do if it's t squared or x squared instead of just x or t? So, yeah, for sure. Very good. Do you have any questions about the math program, or?
I don't think so.
Okay. So you do an Algebra 1 right now. You'd probably be thinking about maybe a geometry course for your for freshman year.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, if you end up having any questions about placement or anything, let me know.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, I'm going to start filling some stuff in here. Hopefully we all agree on what goes where. Calculators are coming in handy here for sure, right? Some pretty big numbers. Whew. 64 squared, are you kidding me? So it'd be, I'm going to use my calculator too. You guys get this number in the square root? Hey, please look at my screen. Look up there. Did you guys get 12,224 for the number inside the square root?
I got 16,000.
I got
What? Oh, I forgot to square my 64. Sorry. This is what happens. This is what happens when you try to do two things at once. Let's try that again. I'm going to go 64 squared. So how about this? 16,256. You okay with that? Okay. Square root of that.
I got 127.49,
Sure.
so 127.5.
So I'm going to go with this. Well, let's do this. I'll keep the nines. 127.499. That looks good. Okay, we're still going to need the calculators. I'm going to come over here and say t equals negative 64 minus that 127.499 all over negative 32, or t equals negative 64 plus 127.499 over negative 32. Please use your calculators correctly. If you remember, there are some potential issues here with order of operations.
Wait, how do you put it in, right, if you want it to go?
Put the top in parentheses. So open parentheses, negative 64 minus 127.499. Yeah. So for one of my answers, I got t equals 5.98. The other one I got this. Please look at your answers, compare them to mine. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So you use the negative symbol right there, so it's actually multiplying those two together. So what I would do is go in here and do minus. Yeah. So guys, I think we're confirming those two blue boxes are the correct solutions to this equation. I do have a question for you though. Which one doesn't make any sense?
The negative one.
Yeah. So yeah, that negative, it's roughly negative 2 seconds, of course. Basically what that's saying is that the ball hits the ground 2 seconds before the person threw it.
That doesn't make sense.
That makes no sense, right? So usually with these negative time values, we just eliminate those because they physically don't make sense for our situation with this object being thrown in the air.
So the answer is.
So our answer is 5.98. So we just say 5.98 seconds is when the ball would hit the ground. Roughly 6 seconds, of course, after the ball was launched or thrown or whatever happened to it, the ball hits the ground. Okay? Guys, questions on the calculator, questions on any setup stuff? What can I do to help?